What if the most dangerous person in a missing elderly woman's life was not a stranger who crept in from the shadows, but someone who had already walked through her front door, sat at her dinner table, and kissed her on the cheek goodnight? What if the answer to where she went was not hidden in some distant criminal underworld, but was already sitting inside 44 seconds of surveillance footage that the investigators had in their possession before the tip lines even opened? And what if the person responsible made not one single mistake, except for one gesture? One movement so small, so quiet, so instinctive that most people watching the footage would pass right over it. A tap. 2 fingers. Slow and deliberate. The kind of tap you give to something you have touched 1,000 times before. That tap is what cracked this case open. Welcome to Black Veil Crime Files. I am your narrator, and tonight we are pulling back the veil on one of the most disturbing, most forensically detailed, and most psychologically layered cases in recent American true crime history. The disappearance of 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie from her home in Tucson, Arizona. A woman who went to sleep in a city she had called home for years and did not wake up there. If this is your first time here, you are exactly where you need to be. Hit that like button right now. Share this video with someone who needs to see it. And subscribe to Black Veil Crime Files with notifications turned on, because we cover every single update on cases like this one the moment they break. And trust me when I tell you, this one is nowhere near finished breaking. We are going to walk through every layer of this case together. The surveillance footage. The forensic analysis. The behavioral evidence. The DNA. The cryptocurrency trail. And the 2 deeply troubling theories that investigators are holding side by side right now, each one more unsettling than the last. We do things differently here at Black Veil Crime Files. We keep the victim at the center. We follow the evidence wherever it leads. And we never flinch from the questions that are uncomfortable to ask. So let us begin. Who is Nancy Guthrie? Before a single piece of footage gets discussed. Before we talk about forensic behavior and digital evidence and federal agents carrying bags out of private residences, I need you to understand who Nancy Guthrie is. Because cases like this one have a way of consuming the person at the very center of them. Burying them beneath the noise of cable news graphics and criminal theory and surveillance stills. And Nancy Guthrie deserves better than that. Nancy is 84 years old. She is a mother. She is a grandmother. She is a woman who, by every single account from the people who love her and who have known her across the span of decades, has moved through her life with a kind of quiet, grounded dignity that you recognize immediately in someone who has genuinely and completely earned it. She is not a headline. She is not a case number. She is a real human being who went to bed in her own home in a neighborhood where people know their neighbors by name, and she did not wake up there. She is also the mother of Savannah Guthrie, the NBC anchor, the Today Show host, one of the most recognized and most trusted faces in American morning television. And that fact matters to this investigation in ways that reach far beyond the wave of national publicity it has generated. It matters forensically. It matters behaviorally. It matters in ways that we are going to return to more than once before this video is finished. Tucson, Arizona. A city that sits wide and low and unhurried across the vast floor of the Sonoran Desert. Long quiet streets and evenings that cool slowly. Neighborhoods where the silence after midnight feels completely ordinary and completely safe. Where a stranger stands out the way a wrong note stands out in a familiar song. That is the kind of neighborhood where Nancy lived. The kind of block where nothing ever happens. Until the night that everything did. On the evening of her disappearance, the family had gathered. Dinner. Card games. The warm, ordinary rhythm of people who love each other spending unhurried time in the same room. The kind of evening that no one photographs because it feels too routine to document. And yet it would become the last documented evening of normalcy in this family's life for a very long time. One of the people present that night was a man named Tommaso San. 50 years old. Nancy's son-in-law. A science teacher with 15 full years inside a classroom. A bass player in a local independent band. A father. A man who by every visible and outward account occupied a comfortable, established, trusted place inside this family. The kind of man you would describe as solid. Reliable. Known. At 9:50 in the evening, Tommaso drove Nancy home. He walked her to her front door. He said goodnight. He left. The neighborhood settled back into its quiet. And then 3 hours and 57 minutes later, at 1:47 in the morning, the Nest security camera mounted on Nancy's front porch was manually disconnected from its power source. Whatever happened to Nancy Guthrie happened in the darkness that followed that disconnection. The 44 seconds that changed everything. Here is something that the person who reached up and killed that camera feed did not understand. And it is something that the FBI understood completely and immediately. Modern cloud-based security systems do not wait for permission to save footage. They do not wait for a recording to finish. They do not wait for the session to close. The moment a motion sensor is triggered, the system begins uploading frame by frame to a remote server in real time. The data leaves the physical device the instant it is generated. By the time that camera went dark, by the time the signal died and the screen went black, the footage was already gone. Already safe. Already sitting in a digital archive in a location completely beyond the reach of whoever reached up and killed the feed. The FBI did not release that footage quietly or casually. They pushed it into public circulation with deliberate, strategic intention. Because what those 44 seconds contained was not simply a visual record of a crime in progress. It was something far more valuable to investigators. It was a behavioral fingerprint. And behavioral fingerprints, unlike physical ones, are not always visible to the naked eye in real time. But under forensic analysis, frame by careful frame, they are often devastating. What the footage shows is this. A figure. Masked. Armed. Wearing a backpack. Standing at the base of Nancy Guthrie's porch steps at 1:47 in the morning. And from the very first frame that this figure enters the shot, something is wrong. Not wrong in the loud, obvious, immediate sense. Wrong in a quieter and considerably more disturbing way. The kind of wrong that takes a few seconds to name but that you feel in your gut before your brain catches up to it. He is not nervous. There is no tension in his shoulders. No urgency in his step. No physiological response to the fact that he is standing on a residential street in the middle of the night about to commit a violent federal crime. He moves with the unhurried, settled ease of a person who has absolutely no reason to be afraid of the space they are moving through. And when he reaches the camera, when he extends those two fingers and taps the lens, slow and deliberate and almost gentle, the wrongness of it snaps into perfect, terrible focus. That tap is not the gesture of someone who has just discovered a camera. That tap is not surprise. That tap is not caution. That tap is the gesture of someone who has been here before. Think about what that means. Really sit with it for a moment. If you are not already subscribed to Black Veil Crime Files, do it right now. Because what comes next is where this case gets truly disturbing. The gear, what it tells us and why it matters. When forensic image analysts and digital investigators began pulling that 44 seconds apart, frame by frame, stabilizing the image, running it through enhancement filters, slowing it down to individual stills, what they built was not a portrait of a professional. What they built was something far more interesting and far more complicated. Starting from the top. A basic synthetic ski mask. The kind sold folded flat in a bin near the checkout counter at any sporting goods store in Tucson. No tactical features. No ventilation design. No specialized construction. Approximately $22. A belly band holster. For anyone unfamiliar with what that is, a belly band is a wide elastic strip designed to be worn flat against the skin, underneath a shirt or a jacket, to keep a firearm completely concealed and pressed against the body. This man was wearing it on the outside of his clothing. over a thick jacket, loose and visibly shifting as he moved, in a way that anyone with even a single afternoon of firearms handling would immediately and clearly identify as completely and dangerously wrong. A former federal agent who reviewed the footage put it plainly. No one with 1 day of tactical experience would carry a weapon that way. Not 1 day. An Ozark brand backpack. Budget. Functional. And fitted with bright reflective safety strips on both shoulder straps. The kind of strips that are specifically designed to catch and amplify any available light source. The kind of strips that would glow under a passing car's headlights. Under a porch light. Under a street lamp. The kind that make a person as visible as possible in low light conditions. Black nitrile gloves. Not tactical gloves. Not equipment from a law enforcement supply catalog. Nitrile gloves are the kind used by plumbers, auto mechanics, food service workers, anyone who handles chemicals or biological materials in an everyday work setting. A box of 100 of them costs approximately $10. They are disposable. They do not leave fingerprints. And they are entirely ordinary in a home maintenance or laboratory environment. Total estimated cost of the entire outfit. Approximately $100. Now here is where this gets genuinely complex. Because there are two very different ways to read that budget gear. And both of them were raised by forensic analysts who reviewed the footage carefully. The first interpretation is the straightforward one. This person is not a professional criminal. They are impulsive, underprepared, operating on desperation rather than design. The holster worn wrong. The reflective backpack strips. The budget gear assembled from a sporting goods store and a hardware aisle. All of it points towards someone who put this together hastily, without training, without experience. Someone who was reacting rather than planning. The second interpretation is considerably more disturbing. And it was raised specifically by forensic psychologists and behavioral analysts who spent significant time with the footage. What if the clumsiness is not accidental? What if every mismatched, amateur, low-budget detail of that outfit was deliberately and carefully chosen by someone who understood precisely how investigators think? Someone who knew that the behavioral profile generated by a messy, underprepared, low-cost crime scene would point investigators away from an educated professional with a clean record, a community reputation, and 15 years of showing up reliably to a classroom. What if the incompetence is the disguise? This concept exists in forensic psychology literature. It is called calculated incompetence. And if it applies here, if this $100 outfit was not assembled out of ignorance but out of strategy, then it is not the sloppiest part of the plan. It is the most sophisticated part of the entire plan. We will come back to that idea. But first, the glove. The glove and the brown paper bag. Share this video right now. Send it to someone. Post it somewhere. This case is about to break open and people need to be paying attention. As the search for Nancy Guthrie reached its most desperate and most urgent point, as her family was making public appeals and the Pima County Sheriff's Office was fielding tips from every corner of the country, investigators found something discarded on the side of a road. A single black glove. Not thrown into a dumpster. Not buried. Not hidden in any meaningful way. Just dropped on the roadside less than 2 miles from Nancy's home along what law enforcement identified as a logical escape route from her neighborhood. Dropped the way you discard something that has already served its purpose. The way you drop a piece of packaging. Casually. Without ceremony. When forensic analysts compared that glove to the gloves visible in the surveillance footage, the match was described by investigators as striking. And then, on the exact same day that glove was recovered, something else happened. News cameras that had been positioned outside the home of Tommaso San and his wife, Nancy's daughter Annie, captured footage of federal agents arriving at the property. Moving through the house. And then emerging carrying a brown paper bag. I need to stop here because I need you to understand what that bag means. If you have never studied forensic investigation protocol, it is easy to look at that image and see nothing remarkable about it. Do not look past it. In standard crime scene investigation, the container used to transport evidence is not a casual or arbitrary choice. It is a deliberate, protocol-driven decision made by trained forensic professionals who understand exactly what they are preserving and why the container matters. Plastic bags are used for hard objects, weapons, tools, items that contain no biological material. Paper bags are reserved for biological evidence, sweat, skin cells, hair, blood, living material that carries DNA. The reason is purely scientific. If you seal biological evidence inside a plastic bag, the moisture becomes trapped inside that sealed environment. That trapped moisture creates conditions for mold growth. And that mold will consume and destroy the very DNA you are trying to preserve. Paper allows the material to breathe. It keeps the genetic information stable and intact for transport to the laboratory. That was the FBI's 6th visit to that property. 6 visits. And on the 6th visit, they left carrying a paper bag. Whatever they removed from that house, they believed with enough professional certainty to choose that specific container, that what they were holding was alive with genetic information worth protecting at all costs. The glove was in a forensic laboratory. The biological material from the house was on its way to one. Both of them waiting for the same answer. The skeleton does not lie. You can cover your face. You can change your clothes. You can practice a different voice and train yourself to walk a different way. But you cannot change your skeleton. You cannot change the ratio of your torso to your legs. You cannot alter the width of your hip structure. You cannot modify the specific geometry of how your body distributes its weight and moves through space. Those things are determined by bone. And bone does not perform. Bone does not lie. And bone does not respond to what you are wearing over it. Using the bricks on Nancy's front entrance as fixed reference points, bricks being a standardized and consistent size that allows forensic analysts to calculate scale with reliable and documentable accuracy, experts built a complete physical profile of the suspect across every frame of the footage. Height, between 5 feet 9 inches and 5 feet 11 inches. Weight, estimated at up to 230 pounds. Body structure, significantly longer in the torso relative to the legs. Broad through the hips. Stocky and solid in build rather than lean or conventionally athletic. These are not details that a baggy jacket conceals. The human skeleton does not compress or expand based on the layers worn over it. Torso-to-leg ratio is determined entirely by bone structure, and bone structure is one of the most stable and reliable identifiers available to forensic science. But then the analysts found something else. Something smaller. Something that at first glance might seem almost too minor, too incidental to matter. And yet when it became public knowledge, it stopped the internet cold. The eyebrows. When forensic image specialists zoomed into the high-resolution infrared frames and focused on the eye holes of the ski mask, they found that the suspect's eyebrows were visible. And they were groomed. Not wild. Not untouched. Not the brows of someone indifferent to their appearance. Deliberately maintained. The kind of eyebrows that belong to someone who looks in a mirror with intention. Someone who cares about how they present themselves to the world. In criminal profiling, this is not a vanity observation. This is a behavioral data point. Groomed eyebrows tell a behavioral analyst that the person behind that mask fits neatly inside a functioning social structure. They have a reputation to maintain. An image to uphold. They are someone you would encounter in a grocery store or a school hallway or at a neighborhood gathering and think absolutely nothing of. That profile points definitively away from a transient, away from a desperate impulsive outsider. It pulls hard towards someone local. Established. Professional. Known. The physical profile, the height, the build, the torso-to-leg ratio, the hip width, was placed alongside photographs of Tommaso San. Family photographs. Band photographs. 15 years of a man showing up in front of a classroom. The overlap was documented by analysts as significant. Not conclusive. Not the same thing as proof. But not comfortable either. And then there is the Carlos Palos chapter. Because intellectual honesty demands that we include it. 8 hours after the FBI released the surveillance footage publicly, not 8 days, 8 hours, police in South Tucson pulled over a delivery driver named Carlos Palos. They detained him. They searched his family's home. They treated him for a meaningful period of time as a genuine person of interest. The reason was his eye shape. Through the eye holes of that ski mask, the suspect's eyes were visible. Dark, large, almond-shaped. And to the officers and to the members of the public who had been flooding tip lines since the footage dropped, those eyes looked familiar enough to justify action with real and serious consequences for a real and innocent man. Carlos Palos was eventually released. His alibi placed him nowhere near Nancy's neighborhood that night. An innocent man detained. An innocent man searched. An innocent man cleared. It is a necessary and sobering reminder of what surveillance footage can do when a frightened and desperate public gets hold of it without the full weight of forensic context attached. Pattern recognition is powerful. It is also dangerous when it moves faster than evidence. Ownership behavior, the science of how this person moved. Drop a comment below right now and tell me what you think is really happening here. I read every single one. In 20 years of criminal profiling literature, there is a concept that keeps surfacing in analysis of this specific footage with an insistence that is almost impossible to set aside. It is called ownership behavior. And it begins the exact moment this man's foot touches the bottom step of Nancy Guthrie's front porch. He does not crouch. He does not press himself against the wall. He does not check the street behind him. He does not scan the neighboring windows. He does not exhibit any of the physiological signs of risk response that every trained behavioral expert in the field would expect to see in a person who is about to commit a violent felony on a residential street at 2 in the morning. He walks. Unhurried. Unafraid. Unconditional in his sense that the space he is moving through belongs to him. Behavioral analysts who reviewed the footage have been extraordinarily consistent on one specific and critical point. This is not how strangers move through unfamiliar high-stakes environments. When the human nervous system encounters an unfamiliar space under high-threat conditions, it generates predictable and documentable physiological responses. Elevated alertness. Heightened scanning behavior. Physical tension in the shoulders and neck. A shortening of stride. An instinct to minimize visual exposure and physical profile. None of that is present in this footage. None of it. When he reaches the camera, he taps it. 2 fingers. Light pressure. A deliberate, slow rhythm. Behavioral analysts call this an ownership tap. It is the physical expression of a subconscious belief, the belief that the object being touched, and by extension the entire space surrounding it, belongs to the person doing the touching. It is not calculated. It is not rehearsed. It is instinctive. And an instinct is the one thing you absolutely cannot rehearse out of yourself no matter how long or how carefully you prepare. Think for a moment about the objects inside your own home that you interact with automatically. The light switch you flip without looking. The door handle you turn with a specific wrist motion that your hand knows before your brain does. The cabinet you open to exactly the right width because your body learned that width through repetition. Those habits are burned into your nervous system by accumulated repetition. By the weight of having done the same thing in the same place more times than you have ever consciously counted. That tap on the camera lens is one of those gestures. Which means, if the behavioral analysts are correct, this person has touched that camera or stood in that specific spot enough times for it to become unconscious muscle memory. Here is the timeline that flows directly from that conclusion. Tommaso was inside Nancy Guthrie's home the night she disappeared. He drove her home at 9:50 in the evening. He walked her through her front door. He said goodnight. He left. 3 hours and 57 minutes later, the camera went dark. His home sits less than 4 miles from Nancy's. A 10-minute drive in Tucson at 2 in the morning. 4 hours. A 10-minute commute. Think carefully about what can be accomplished inside that window by someone who is completely calm. Who knows the route? Who knows the neighborhood? Who knows exactly where the camera is and precisely how it works? 4 hours is not a gap in this investigation. It is a logistical runway. And then there is the final behavioral detail from the footage. After tapping the camera, the figure reaches up and slowly covers the lens with a branch. A piece of foliage. Without urgency. Without rushing. He does not smash it. He does not spray it. He does not throw anything at it. He covers it the way you adjust a picture frame on a wall you have walked past every single day for years. Calm. Deliberate. Familiar. The movement of someone who feels completely at home. That is not how a stranger moves. That is how a person moves through a space that they believe, on a bone-deep and involuntary level, is theirs. $6 million, a Bitcoin wallet, and a trap. In the days following Nancy's disappearance, a ransom demand became public. $6 million. In Bitcoin. With a wallet address that was sent not privately to the family through secure channels, but to media outlets. Broadcast to the world. $6 million sounds like an organized criminal operation. It sounds like infrastructure. Like experience. Like people who understand how to move large amounts of cryptocurrency through anonymous channels without leaving a trail that a federal forensic unit can follow. Except that when investigators and blockchain analysts examined the actual public ledger, the immutable, permanently visible, unalterable record of every single transaction ever made on the Bitcoin network, what they found was not $6 million. What they found was a single transaction of under $300. That small transfer is not a ransom payment in any meaningful functional sense. What it almost certainly is, and what the FBI's behavior in the days immediately following strongly suggests, is a trap. The technique is called tickling the wire. Law enforcement sends a small amount of cryptocurrency to the wallet address provided in the ransom demand. Not enough to be significant. Just enough to register. And then they watch. They monitor every interaction with that digital address around the clock without interruption. Because the moment someone accesses that wallet to check whether anything has arrived, the moment an anxious, impatient, uncertain kidnapper opens it to see if the money came through, their device sends a signal to the network. That signal carries an IP address. That IP address carries a location. And that location, depending on how careful the person on the other end has been, can carry a name. The FBI is not waiting for $6 million to move. They are waiting for one login. And the wallet has been completely silent. Now think carefully about what that silence tells us. If this were a professional criminal operation, an organized network with real and practiced experience in cryptocurrency and digital forensics, that money would have been moved within hours of the demand going public. Tumbled through a chain of anonymous wallets. Scattered. Converted. Disappeared. Professionals do not leave funds sitting in a monitored address because a static wallet is an active liability. They move immediately. But this wallet has not moved. Which means one of exactly two things. Either the person on the other end is sophisticated enough to recognize the trap they walked into and is now completely frozen, too aware of the exposure risk to take any action at all. Or they are not a professional. They knew enough about Bitcoin to set one up. They understood in theory that cryptocurrency offers a degree of anonymity. But they did not understand that the FBI maintains forensic units dedicated entirely to blockchain surveillance. And they did not understand that checking a balance is just as traceable as cashing out. This is what investigators have begun describing as the middle ground of competency. Enough technical knowledge to be dangerous. Not nearly enough to be safe. The suspect knew how to disconnect a cloud-based camera system, though not well enough to know the footage had already uploaded before the signal died. He knew enough to set up a cryptocurrency wallet, though not well enough to recognize a monitored address or understand blockchain transparency. That specific, narrow band of informed but not expert technological capability fits a very precise profile. An educated person. Someone who understands how systems work in principle. Someone who lacks the criminal operational experience to understand how federal investigations dismantle those systems in practice. The timeline fits. The geography fits. The digital silence fits. And somewhere in a federal forensics laboratory, a glove is giving up its DNA. And a Bitcoin wallet sits completely, uncomfortably still. Both of them waiting for the same moment. The moment the silence finally breaks. Make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on. When this case breaks, you absolutely need to be here. The Other Road, Erotomania and the Ghost Theory. If this investigation stands for anything beyond the immediate facts of the case, it stands for intellectual honesty. And intellectual honesty in a case this complex, this high-profile, and this emotionally charged requires us to hold more than one possibility at a time. Even when one of those possibilities is harder to follow. Even when following it leads somewhere genuinely frightening. So let me talk about the other road. There is a documented and classified psychiatric condition called erotomania. It is listed in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders as a delusional disorder in which a person becomes convinced, with total, unshakable, unresponsive to evidence certainty, that another person, typically someone of higher social status, is in love with them. Not might be. Not seems to be. The delusion is complete. It does not respond to contradiction. It cannot be corrected by reality. Because for the person experiencing it, the delusion has already replaced reality entirely. Now apply that framework to this case. In this theory, the actual object of obsession is not Nancy Guthrie. Nancy is not the target. She is the path to the target. The target is her daughter, Savannah Guthrie. One of the most visible, most accessible seeming, and yet simultaneously most unreachable public figures in American media. A woman who appears on millions of television screens every single morning across the country, who speaks directly into living rooms and kitchens and bedrooms with an intimacy that television creates powerfully and deceptively. And yet who operates inside layers of institutional security that would make direct physical access essentially impossible for any member of the general public. For a person operating under an erotomanic delusion, Savannah is a fortress. Visible. Desired. Unattainable. But her mother. An 84-year-old woman living independently in a quiet residential neighborhood. No security detail. No gatekeeping. No institutional barrier between her front porch and the public street. Her mother is accessible. Forensic psychologists call this kind of target a proxy victim. The accessible path to an otherwise completely unreachable destination. Through this lens, the ownership behavior on that porch takes on an entirely different and considerably darker meaning. The comfort. The ease. The complete absence of fear. It may not come from having physically been to that porch before. It may come from something far more disturbing. A delusion so complete and so total that this person genuinely believes they already belong to this family. In his internal reality, he is not a stranger on a stranger's porch committing a crime. He is a family member. Someone the family simply has not fully acknowledged yet. He is not trespassing. He is arriving. The groomed eyebrows, revisited through this framework, suddenly make a completely different and deeply unsettling kind of sense. Why would someone planning a violent abduction in the middle of the night take careful, deliberate care of their physical appearance? Because in his mind, this may not be a crime at all. It may be a debut. He knows that Savannah Guthrie will see this footage. He knows it will be broadcast to millions. He is not preparing for a kidnapping. He is preparing to be seen. For the first time. by the woman he believes already loves him. And the Bitcoin wallet. The silence. The ransom sent to media outlets instead of privately to the family. The $6 million demand that never once functioned as a real financial transaction. Through this lens, every single one of those details makes complete and terrible sense. Because he does not want money. He wants acknowledgement. He wants a nationally recognized woman to say his name on camera. He wants the family to appear in front of microphones, broken and searching, because every headline and every press conference and every evening news broadcast is a message directed specifically and personally at him. If this theory is correct, we are not searching for someone with a grudge or a financial motive or a traceable criminal history. We are looking for someone whose entire logic exists completely outside the reach of conventional reason. Someone you cannot negotiate with. Someone you cannot predict. Someone who does not respond to reality the way the rest of us do. And that is what makes an erotomanic stalker genuinely, uniquely, categorically dangerous. You cannot reason with a delusion. You cannot follow its logic with conventional investigative tools. And you cannot predict where it goes next. Standing at the crossroads. We are standing at the crossroads now. And I want to name both roads clearly and honestly before I tell you where this investigation appears to be pointing. On one side, Tommaso San. A man carrying 5 significant coincidences that, taken individually and in isolation, might each be explained away. But stacked together, layered precisely one on top of the other, they form a pattern that federal investigators keep returning to. 6 visits to that property by FBI agents. A brown paper bag that speaks in the unambiguous language of forensic protocol about biological evidence worth protecting. A physical profile that overlaps measurably and documentably with the surveillance footage. A behavioral analysis that describes the porch interaction as the unambiguous movement of someone deeply and repeatedly familiar with that space. A 4-hour window with no confirmed public alibi. A technological fingerprint, partially informed, non-expert, educated but not operationally experienced, that fits an educated professional rather than a career criminal. On the other side, a ghost. A stranger driven entirely by delusion rather than conventional motive. A man who walked onto that porch not as a kidnapper pursuing a financial outcome but as a suitor operating inside a reality entirely of his own construction. Someone whose connection to that family exists nowhere in the physical world but lives with absolute completeness inside his own mind. Both roads are real. Both deserve honest examination. Both lead somewhere genuinely frightening. But here is what I keep returning to. Here is the thing I cannot move past no matter how many times I review the evidence. A direction is not a verdict. A pattern is not a conviction. And 5 coincidences, however precisely and uncomfortably stacked, are not the same thing as proof. Tommaso San has not been charged. The Pima County Sheriff has stated publicly and clearly that there are no named suspects in this investigation. What is real, what is certain, what remains? What is real? What is certain, unambiguous, and non-theoretical is this. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old. She went to bed in her own home in a city she loves, surrounded by a neighborhood she has been part of for years. She has a daughter who greets millions of people every single morning from a television screen and who is right now, in real time, searching for her mother. She has grandchildren. She has a life that was interrupted without warning on a quiet Tuesday evening in Tucson. And she has not been found. She is not a theory. She is not a forensic detail. She is not a behavioral data point. She is a real woman and she is still out there. The black glove is in a laboratory right now. Forensic technicians are building a DNA profile from the biological material left behind by whoever wore it. That profile does not deal in theories. It does not weigh behavioral analysis or physical profiles or the significance of groomed eyebrows. It will either match or it will not. And when it does, or when it does not, this entire conversation will shift instantly and completely. The paper bag is in evidence. Whatever the FBI removed from that home is being analyzed right now with the full weight of federal forensic resources behind it. The Bitcoin wallet is being watched around the clock. Every second of every hour. The truth is not a matter of if. It is a matter of when. If you know anything at all, about what happened to Nancy Guthrie on the night of her disappearance, please do not carry it quietly. The Pima County Sheriff's Office is the primary contact point for tips on this investigation. The right time to come forward is not tomorrow. It is right now. Here at Black Veil Crime Files, we will be covering every single development in this case as it happens. That is our commitment. We cover these cases with the facts front and center, with the victim at the heart of every frame, and with the discipline and the patience to follow the evidence wherever it leads, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it challenges conclusions that feel settled, and especially when it demands a patience that the urgency of the moment makes almost impossible to give. Nancy Guthrie deserves that patience. She deserves the full and uncompromising weight of it. The mask is still on. But the science does not sleep. The laboratory does not close. The wallet is still being watched. And the glove is still giving up its secrets one base pair at a time. If this video meant something to you, if it told you something you did not know or asked a question worth sitting with, please like it right now. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me where you are watching from. Tell me which theory you believe. Tell me what detail stopped you cold. And subscribe to Black Veil Crime Files if you are not already here. Turn those notifications on. Because when this breaks, and it will break, you need to be in the room when it happens. We do not cover these cases for the numbers. We cover them because someone has to ask the questions that do not go away. And on this case, the questions are nowhere near finished. The veil is still down. But we are pulling at it. This is Black Veil Crime Files. I will see you in the next one.